Hi everyone, I'm Sidharth and welcome to UPSHIP. Today we are here to meet someone who wants to help India rediscover its tea culture. Yes, he wants to change the way you drink your tea. Let's meet Mr. Prasanna Satpathy, the co-founder of cTea's.
Hi Sidharth, welcome to cTea's.
Yeah.
So good, so this is our first premium outlet,
Okay.
which we set up about 7 months ago. So as you see, by the way, we opened our second one yesterday in KIIT Patia. So this whole concept, as you see, is obviously our goal is to revive India's tea drinking culture. Let me take you upstairs and show you a few more things.
Sure. Let's start talking about cTea's. Like, how did you first come up? Like, when did this idea start brewing in your mind?
So, as you know, we had four, me and my wife Mochana and her brother Srushti and wife Sunita. So, Srushti had made a business plan. He was in Singapore. He had made a business plan 4 or 5 years ago to do something with tea. And my wife, about 6 years ago, she had watched Tivana, which is now a Starbucks company, coming up. And she was very keen to do something like that, or at least take a franchise. And I was not keen at that stage. You know, as an exec, you have a very demanding job, you have kids, you're traveling 5 days a week. So it's very difficult to support a spouse trying to do a business venture. So about 15 months ago, unfortunately, I lost my mom. And so I had some issues, was psychologically not stable. I had not spent any time with her since I was a baby. So I came to India. This is actually my 9th or 10th trip in the last 15 months. Okay. So started spending a lot of time in India. And then two of them again got talking, my wife and her brother. And then they asked me. So I said, let me read up a little, because I'm the systems guy, right? You must prepare a lot. So I read up the first book. I realized that it is no different than wine. And I'm very fascinated with wine. That's a subject. Actually, I probably know more than I know about tea.
Okay.
So I read about 20, 25 books. Every book we have here, I have read. So we have more than the top 25 books on tea. So then I realized it's really a very fascinating subject. So that's how the thing came.
And since then, how far have you come? Like since?
Learned a lot about tea. Obviously, very fascinated. Many things struck me. So the first thing that strikes you is that there is a way to rewrite the world history through the medium of tea.
Okay.
So if you look at any colony, American War of Independence, the famous Boston Tea Party, you'll find the poster somewhere here. As a history buff, you have to admire how much it is about tea. There is a part that India is actually a tea, we consume the highest amount of tea, by the way, more than the Chinese who make more tea. And our culture is actually very integral to tea, right? So it's everything about life. You know, it's a ceremony, it's a meal for the poor people, it's high tea for the rich, even it's chai pani, you know, if you want to, grease somebody's hands. And then you realize that although tea is so dominant, but the moment you step out of the house, it's either a street drink or it does not exist. It's not relevant.
So this is where cTea's comes into the picture.
This is where, so one of the objectives is to revive what I say India's tea drinking culture. Because I think there are a lot of benefits in the tea drinking culture, community, a lot of ideation, discussion, you know, most of the, as you know, cafes, tea cafes, I mean coffee cafes too, but have been the place where people meet, discuss poetry, politics, you know, anything which is artistic, anything which is creative, intellectual. And I think there is a way, a lot of issues that we face today in the world can be fixed if we just spoke, if we just talk to each other. So there is a saying, I think we might have a poster somewhere, make tea, not war.
Okay, yeah,
right.
That sounds interesting. So you started your first outlet a couple months ago and now you have your second outlet. So how has the journey been, like creating the experience, and what is the experience that you offer?
So this one we started actually about 6-7 months ago, October 1st. And so we have a little bit of experience now. The second outlet, as you saw, just opened.
Yeah.
So the experience here, of course, it depends on the location. So this is a residential area. So we get very good footfall in the evenings after 4:35. In the morning, it's not an office area. It's not a college campus kind of area, unlike our second outlet, KIT. And the Indian biorhythm is such that some people start the day late and they don't necessarily go out like in the West we would to go pick up a cup of tea. They would rather take it from home.
Do you see that happening a couple of years from now?
Absolutely, absolutely. You know, I think in any culture, as you get more and more industrialized, time becomes important. And you specialize. And you want a change, you want an experience. It's very difficult to get a very good experience yourself. You want something different. And this will be part of that fabric. As you are going to your work, you will pick up, you know, a kind of tea, like a green tea today, for example. So I think that will come. I think it will take some time.
So what is this experience that you've been working on? For, let's say, I like tea, or maybe I don't know much about tea, but I want to have an experience. So what exactly do you offer?
So the concept here, which is not fully developed, but you see the parts of it coming up, is first of all to educate you about tea, right? I did not know until a year ago that it is the largest consumed liquid in the world. After water, but combined more than the 4 next, liquids, right? Which is coffee, alcohol, soda and juice. All of the 4, if you combine, tea is more.
So you have more tea than Coke in the world?
All the 4 combined. So you take soda, alcohol, juice and coffee. Basic fact. And of course that the fact that India is a tea drinking culture and the health benefits of tea. So tea is the only drink which has not only a stimulation effect, it's a stimulant, but it can calm you down as well. It has a soothing effect. It has very rich, nice organic chemicals, which people know about green tea, but they don't realize that there are many such components in many other types of tea.
Could you just tell us something about the varieties of tea that you offer here?
Yes, so normally there are many ways to classify tea. The most common way that you will see people classify tea is into 6 types. That is based on how you process the leaves. So all tea comes from a single plant and a leaf, Camellia sinensis. And then what happens is your white tea, which is pretty much plucked and just dried and it's very fresh. And then you have green tea, little more processed. And then you have yellow, then you have oolong, then you have black. So as you go on fermenting more and processing more, you get those types of tea. The 6th type, there is another type of tea called pu'er, which mainly the Chinese and the Japanese drink. It's very highly oxidized and fermented. And it can be very expensive. So, but these are the 5 main types.
So what are the number of variants that you have at CTea's? A rough number then.
So we don't have here pu'er, but we have all the other types of tea. So green, white, black, yellow, oolong. We have iced teas, of course, which is brewed cold. We also have what is called rubios or tisanes. Tisanes are strictly not teas. Anything that does not come out of Camellia sinensis tea plant is not tea. But in a loose vocabulary, people call it, kind of flavored tea or tisanes. So we have those types as well. So altogether, we serve today almost 70 types of tea.
70? That
you can pick up from our menu. But the idea is we'll start selling much more on our own brand, CTea's brand, almost 250 to 300 types of tea. Even today you can buy some, but that's the next step we are working on.
So right now you have 2 outlets. How do you see the growth of CTea's?
So as we speak, we are opening 2 more express outlets. One will open almost in 2 more days inside the Silicon Engineering College. Which is, so we'll have a concept of CTea's at campus. So that is the first experiment, then we can go to other campuses. But Silicon will be the first one. And we will also open in about 2 to 3 weeks in DLF, the business building. There will be an express outlet there. So those are happening practically as we speak. And then we are looking for space now because this is a business where you need good footfall area. Because tea is a space business, believe it or not. So you are trying to buy space and trying to make the economics work. Right? So space is important. And we are looking at Puri because it gets lots of tourists. So those are the...
So my question again, this came up to me that, so you basically operate from the United States. And so when you start here, why did you choose Bhubaneswar as a starting point?
So the big reason is it's a learning place for us. If we went to, let's say, US, we could start from the US where I live.
Okay.
We could start in Singapore where my partner lived, or any of the big cities in India, which actually it will be economically much more viable. You'll break even faster. But I think it's learning is easy here at a lesser cost. You have a lot of support of community, friends, contacts, and there is an emotional component. This is where we went from, and I certainly carry a sense of, after 3 decades of roaming the planet to try and do something for my place first. So we want to be known as a Bhubaneswar.
Yeah, so when did you think that I'm going to start up? Like, why did you start up?
So like I said, the idea was there, between my wife and her brother. And once I got excited, and once we are all on the same page, so obviously we didn't want to lose time. And I think Bhubaneswar is a very interesting stage. It's been like that for a few years, so it's waiting to take off. But we seriously believe that time is almost here, maybe another couple of years. Now, it'll get too late if the place is taking off and then you come in. We believe you have to take the position early and then wait and invest out a little. And as Bhubaneswar takes off, I saw Bangalore from 1985 when I got out of BITS Pilani. And I see Bangalore today, which in many respects is better than Manhattan or Chicago from consumption perspective.
So you see Bhubaneswar going that way?
It may not be a Bangalore in the next 20, 30 years, but it can be a tier 2 city. It can be a Pune, it can be a Nasik, and that will be a very big step.
So we'll talk about entrepreneurship and the tea culture in India. But before that, let's talk about the store experience. So I was checking out your new outlet yesterday, and then you had POS systems, and you also had a true 4K cinematic experience there. So could you tell us how digital is going to play a role in the in-store experience, and how do you see, even now or in the future, how are people going to come and drink a cup of tea at CTea's?
Very, very interesting question. I'm glad you asked. So the millennials are all about experience, right? People of your age, and they consume things very differently by experience, because you're used to the conveniences of a smartphone, easy interface. So if you look at our background is IT, right? So we are in some sense bringing the IT experience into tea, which is immersive digital. What is immersive? Like I said, everything about tea. It's not only music, DVD, books, tea education, tea museum, tea accessories, tea artifacts, but can I make you feel you are having tea in a plantation?
Okay.
Can I, using this wall, project tea garden-like feel and fool you into believing you are actually in a tea garden? That's where digital comes in and 4K comes in. So today 4K is the highest definition we have.
Why do you spend so much of your time and even the budget on, let's say, technology? How do you see, like, in the future, in the next 5 years, is every cafe or every high-end experience going to be linked with technology somehow or the other?
Yeah, technology meaning video is a big part of it. So if you are watching Facebook, any of the social media, YouTube, if you see, it's all about video. So video has all the cues of communication, right? We are talking, there is only, so many cues. In a video, you get all the cues and experience. If you notice any conference, they will start with a 2-minute clip with a video that sets a special context. So I think if we can put a high quality experience of making you believe that you are in a tea plantation, or you are in a sunrise, or you are in a sunset, or you are in New York City, although you are in Bhubaneswar here in CTea's. We have things like, how do we give a window to the world? You want to read your Wall Street Journal, Economist, Fortune, Forbes, or any of those things. That access also we are
So you talked about millennials, and so for example, what's happening right now is I see people consume coffee. So for example, I like drinking coffee. Tea may not be my first choice. So,
not your cup of tea.
Yeah, it's yeah. So that might change in the future. So how do you work on that? How do you make me a person who's always been having coffee at, multinational chains, and how do you get me to experience tea and have the same level of loyalty towards tea as I have towards coffee?
So I think two parts to that. One is lot of people are having tea. They are having it at home.
Okay.
When they wake up in the morning, if you see a statistic, and we have taken some data, how many people in India wake up to tea versus how many wake up to coffee? Far more wake up to tea, which is why it's more consumed than the next four put together. Except some in South India, most people wake up to tea. In the night, after 8 or 9 p.m., if they take, they will avoid coffee, unless they're a college student trying to wake up throughout the night. But the moment they go outside, they take coffee.
Okay.
And we talked about that, right? You don't have a place like this. It's a roadside, 10 rupee, 20 rupee tea. And we'll talk about whether that is tea or not. See the tea, not to digress, but this is a good segue to talk about what tea do you get outside. It's only one type, black tea, very cheap quality, powder tea. They're not leaves. So when it is powder, it's very poor quality. Stems may be part of it. You do not know what is crushed. It is eating real meat versus minced meat. You do not know what is minced, right? And then it is recycled 10 times, right? Because he has to make money. And so he puts a lot of sugar, a lot of milk, and it's taste. We do not put your milk unless you ask. We try to give you tea in a very unique way. That's the other differentiation, how we present our tea.
Yeah, so could you talk, so in this context, could you talk about rediscovering the Indian culture of drinking tea? So you want to make tea cool again?
Absolutely. So I think, and these are some of the ways, that is, if people are today thinking that coffee cafes are hip, whatever word you use, or cool,
yeah,
we'll make it 10 times cooler.
Okay.
Right? By technology, by accessories, by museum-like experience, by magazines, whatever access you want, and by education. So people will realize that tea has everything that coffee has, except it doesn't have that much caffeine, and much more.
Which is better?
Which is better,
okay.
Like your health, your skin, your eye puffiness, and on and on and on, right? Your blood pressure, your heart. It has many, many, many benefits, which people do not know as much. They somehow think green tea has a little bit, but beyond that, they don't know. That's part of our challenge. How do we educate and then make it cool at the same time?
So do you see that in India, we're going to have tea chains also growing in popularity apart from cTea's? Like I have seen a couple of other tea chains also coming up. So is this a trend of having premium tea experiences across the nation?
This is a trend across the world. So if you see, the reason Starbucks bought Ivana is exactly answer to your question.
Okay.
And I always say this, did you know that before 1773, Boston Tea Party, in 1776 where the American War of Independence starting, America consumed more tea than coffee, and England consumed more coffee than tea. That changed, that flipped, right? Because of patriotic, feelings, and because America won Second World War, First World War, and became the economic powerhouse and became cool, because in American textbooks, American movies, soft power, soft culture. So that dominated. But that trend is changing. It'll take some time, but it's changing fast, and tea is coming.
How do you see a role of cTea's in that story?
So that is the early position we are taking, right? So the hope is that if you have an early mover's advantage, you will reap the benefits. Not necessarily economically, but the dominance, that you have a credibility in the marketplace, you have a head start, you understand it more than others. Each day we learn more about our customers, what they want.
So you're constantly evolving.
It's evolving, that is right. So tea, you are right, absolutely, it's a growing trend. And I think people are becoming more and more health conscious. They are drinking less soda, particularly in the rich countries. It's like smoking is going down, and all the health elements are coming up. And tea is part of that mix.
Now let's talk about entrepreneurship in general and how you have started. So could you talk about some of the challenges you faced along the way when you working, for example, working from the US and kind of used to a global work culture? So when you come and start up in Bhubaneswar, what are like some practical challenges that you face?
So I'm smiling because I want to be careful how I answer this. But bluntly speaking, as polite as I can be, it is very hard. Particularly hard for people like us who have lived all their lives. I mean, I worked in India only for 2 years, right? I was not even 24, I left abroad. it's very difficult to, particularly in Bhubaneswar, to even do small, execution is hard. Everything that I said sounds very, obvious, very common sense, but to execute it, I'll give you a small example. You see behind there are tiles I put on the wall.
Yeah.
You never see tiles put there. They were meant for, bottom when you walk up. But, I take my eyes off and then somebody has put them there. So again, the idea is I want to be careful. Don't want to be negative about it, but it's very difficult to get skills, and that's part of the reason we got Subrata Bagchi as the chief guest. I want him to realize that he has a tough job ahead. We are not getting people. Today, our biggest challenge is getting people, not only at high end or mid end, but at low end as well. So it is difficult. But the beauty is, and which is partly true for India, when we do something, we do extremely well, because we put our heart and soul. As a culture, as a race, we just need some direction and discipline, right? And if that can be given, and the tools are given, we are brilliant. And I saw that yesterday, in 24 hours that place, it looked like it'll take another month to finish. It finished overnight.
Yeah. How do you look at cTea's or your mission for cTea's in the next 5-10 years?
I think in some ways the bar is very low. I have lived in 12 to 15 countries over the last 30 years, and I travel extensively in my job. I'm a foodie. I go to every place. I have not seen this concept being attempted. And we are trying to do too much. If we can do even 10% of that we are thinking, this could be the best concept in cafe in the whole world. Right? Forget India. This, because we see the top cafes throughout the world. I see them in UK, in Australia, in US. There is nothing other than few chairs and Wi-Fi. That's it. So I think it's very easy if someone wants to execute an immersive, digital, museum-like experience and a very holistic experience. It is possible. A tea break should really feel like a tea break. You should absolutely go refreshed. If we can do that, sky is the limit. I mean, we can open outlets in US and Singapore. In India, we'll grow in multiple cities. We can then get funding. You can take off exponentially once you feel confident and prove the concept.
So you're still learning, and once you kind of hit the inflection point, then it's...
Absolutely. We are learning. We learn it we want to take time, right? You don't want to be, going too much fast without learning, a little bit.
So let's talk about entrepreneurship. So now we have the government pushing for startups really well, like they have the Startup India program. So how do you look at the role of entrepreneurship in an economy, or even for developing, let's say a city or a country?
Very important. I think if you see, one of the reasons US is dominant and Europe is not, or Australia is not, which have all the same good elements of a Western culture, of efficiency, of productivity, of tools, infrastructure, entrepreneurship is not there. The confidence to take risk, right, and to fail.
So since you've been outside the country also, how do you see, if you contrast, let's say the United States and India, the startup ecosystem or the perception of risk and failure, how is it different, or is it different?
It is different. Now for some industries, we are closing the gap. So if you see in the fintech industry, in some of the emerging internet industry, I think the gap is closing. It is no more a taboo to fail in India also. But by and large, obviously, there is a lot more cultural shift and mindset shift we need in India. The money has come in. I think today there is liquidity if you want to tap into funding. But I think the ability to take risk is important.
Okay, so one final question. So what would you advise to a person who just wants to start up?
It's the same old advice which you'll always hear. Find an area that you're passionate about. And do not focus on money or economics. Enjoy, be passionate about it. Everything else will follow naturally. If you're not passionate, it's very hard.
Okay, so passion is the key.
Passion is the key, one word, everything else will come from that. If you're passionate, you'll put the efforts, you'll take the risk, you'll work non-stop, you'll do the right thing. If you're not passionate, nothing else will, fall in place.
It was nice talking to you. Great.
It's a pleasure,
we'll catch up
Sidharth.
again.
Yeah.